It's time to talk about more post-rotation stuff. And this time we are going to talk about a card that I think everyone who went to a pre-release saw, and that, in my opinion, was the low-key MVP of most pre-release leagues. That's just my guess, because I went to 3 events over the weekend, and playing this card more won me more games over those 3 events. So, the card that we are going to talk about today, that card is Froslass. This is the card in question, Froslass, right? Stage 1, water type Pokemon. What is the big deal about a stage 1 water type with 80 HP, right? Well, for the purpose of a pre-release, it was great because it lets you do 140 damage with 1 energy, which in a pre-release event kills most anything that's going to get thrown out there. And you got at least 2 of these in many decks in the pre-release. So that's why I said this is the low-key winner, because it's 2 of the 4 prizes that you need. Easy breezy, beautiful. But this pre-release MVP, I think, was put into a lot of those decks because the people who make Pokemon know that RESHIZARD was going to be super OP when it came out. And they were like, we want to give somebody the perfect card post-rotation to take down a RESHIZARD with 1 energy. And that is this card. This card can take down a RESHIZARD, 1-hit KO, 1 energy cost. That's all it needs. So let's talk about what this card does and why I think it's going to be teched into a lot of decks as an anti-RESHIZARD card. So Froslass is a stage 1, as I said before. It evolves from Snorunt. The nice thing about Snorunt is that he can be searched out with Professor Elm's Lecture, I believe. That's the one that takes the 60 HP Pokemon. Find 2 of them if you need early on in your game, if you know that you're going to be facing off a RESHIZARD deck. And then through a mixture of Cherish Balls and Pokemon Communications, or just luck of the draw, you can grab yourself a Froslass or 2, especially if you're running a water deck. But if you're also running a deck that does any unit energy, this is also perfectly fine to put onto it. So, what makes this card a RESHIZARD killer? Well, its first attack is what makes it a RESHIZARD killer. Its first attack is called Spiteful Sigh. Spiteful Sigh, for 1 water energy, it does 20 times damage. Now, the text of this card reads that put up to 7 damage counters on this Pokemon, period. The attack does 20 damage for each damage counter that you placed in this way. Now, as I read that, it doesn't do 20 damage for each damage counter that it has on this Pokemon. I think it only will do 20 damage for each damage counter you placed on the Pokemon for this attack round only. So it's not like you can build up damage like a Spiritomb and then throw it into the active. But it doesn't matter. It's a 1-price Pokemon. Even if it gets KO'd, you can trade a 1 for a 3. That's all that matters. And if you do the math on that, right? If you can place up to 7 damage counters, right? What's basically saying is you can put 140 damage max onto this card on any given turn. And 140 damage in weakness with the water is 280 damage, which is exactly what you need to KO a RESHIZARD. This card was Pokemon's response to RESHIZARD, just straight up. Now, it's not just RESHIZARD that this card is great against. If you're playing against the RESHIZARD build, specifically the greens build that we're going to see this next time around, you are also probably going to be facing up against things like Volcanion. You might be facing up against things like Arcanine. But yeah, for 3 damage counters, 60 damage, you take out a Volcanion. For 4 damage counters, 80 damage, you take out an Arcanine. Which means that if this thing manages to survive past turn 1, that you throw it down at least, then you could potentially take out 2 of their Pokemon. You can get a 3 damage counter, or 4 and 4 even, right? It says you can place up to 7. You can place 3 damage counters and then place 7 again. It doesn't matter if you go over its HP. That doesn't matter. So I think this card is going to be teched into a lot of decks. If you think that you're going to be up against a greens Reshi especially, essentially, this is the ultimate RESHIZARD deck tech. Now, do you need to tech for RESHIZARD all that much post-rotation? I think RESHIZARD got a lot weaker with the loss of Choice Band. I think Green's Reshi is still going to be running around, though. It still has a lot of potential, that deck. Still a tier 1, tier 2-ish deck. So I think if you're running something like a Pikarom, you want to throw a couple of Rainbow Energies in there. I don't know if you can find the room, but if you can, I think if you are running something like the Slowpoke Psyduck deck, though, people talk about that deck. It's just a meme deck. It's not real. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you can make space for one of these on your bench, 3 Lapras, 4 Lapras maybe, one of these guys, Slowpoke and Psyduck, 3 Lapras, another Slowpoke and Psyduck, you can make the room for this. You don't need all 4 Lapras on the bench, and likely you're not going to get all 4 Lapras on the bench. Doesn't matter. One of these could do some serious damage. It is the Zapdos for water decks. That is my opinion. Maybe it's not quite as good as Zapdos, but it's pretty darn good. Anyways, that's just something I wanted to share with you that I learned at the pre-release this weekend. I thought it was just a really incredible card to play with and to think about. But yeah, I want to know what your thoughts are. Did you go to your pre-release event? What card really stood out at your event? Maybe Froslass wasn't so hype wherever you were for some reason. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, check out some of my other videos and subscribe to the channel. I do other strategy videos and pack opening videos. I open some Unified Minds kits as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and Carpe Awesome.